Hey folks, glad that you could join me. I just want to continue the lecture on the Greco-Roman world. Today's lecture is about the philosophy that shaped, or the philosophies that shaped some of the views that we find in the New Testament. So I think you'll find this lecture interesting, so we'll just get right to it. The most significant philosopher of the Greco or the Greek period, ancient Greek period, was Socrates and his student Plato, who recorded much of what Socrates wrote or taught. Socrates, of course, didn't write anything himself. He was a teacher, kind of an itinerant teacher who went around, but also taught, in Athens, and gathered a group of pupils around him and taught his ideas to them. And then Plato becomes his most significant student, who records many of the dialogues and much of the philosophy that Socrates taught, and then becomes sort of a philosopher in his own right. Now, Plato is deeply influential upon how Greeks came to view the world, and in reality, I think he's deeply influential upon how many of us view the world today. His main contribution to the philosophical discourse was this idea of dualism. And dualism, of course, means two things, right? That the cosmos, the world, is divided into two parts. And the way that we can think about that is a distinction between the concrete, physical world and the spiritual world, or the world of ideas. We all have a sense, and Plato was the one who sort of put this and formulated this into a theory, but we all have a sense that there's something more to the world than just the physical. There's something more to the world than what you can touch. In fact, there's something more to the world than what you can see. And Plato took this idea and says, well, you know what? There's this whole other world, this world of ideas beyond what we can touch and see. And he would look at the elements of the world. He would look around and you look at cups, you look at saucers, you look at hills, you look at tree trunks. You look at all of those things and you can abstract one principle from it, the circle. That abstract idea is what Plato says is more real, actually, than what you see and what you can touch, because what you can see and what you can touch goes away. A cup can be broken, a saucer can fall on the ground and break into many pieces, and it's no longer a saucer, it's just shards of whatever material, pottery, that made it up. But the idea of the thing can never be broken. The idea of the saucer, the circle, the idea that is shared between all of these things, circularity. Now, that is an idea to be expressed mathematically. That is an idea that doesn't go away. It in fact, so because it's everlasting, Plato would say, well, it's more real than what you actually see. What you see in the world is appearances. What you see in the world is fading and won't last forever. What you can touch is less real than the idea behind them, and that's the notion of dualism there. that there is this other world, this world of spirit, this world of ideas, and that carries into the Christian philosophy of the idea of a soul, that we have something that outlives that which is our physical personhood, and that we have something that is beyond just that complex of physical and neurological and chemical. This idea that there's something essential to us that can't be expressed, that can't be seen, that can't be touched, and that is more real than even our physical existence or our chemical or neurological. You can capture all those things, but you can't capture the soul, right? So that's the main contribution, dualism, philosophical dualism. And you have many philosophers who took on Plato's thoughts, people like Plutarch, Middle Platonist, later than Philo of Alexandria, Philo and Plutarch. In our period, those are the people who are writing similar to around the same time as Paul, And we see in Paul some of these ideas of dualism, but mainly we find it in the book of Hebrews, this idea that there is this everlasting temple and an everlasting high priest, Jesus, the everlasting high priest, that exists beyond that. So beyond all time. So you have this idea of dualism. Now, another philosophy that I think is really very interesting from the ancient Greek period and that lives and is very influential in the Hellenistic period is the philosophy called Stoicism. Now, Stoics believe that the cosmos, the world, was ordered, that everything had a place and everything happened for a purpose, that there was a logos or logikos in the world, this logical, reason-driven purpose for all things. And Stoicism in the Hellenistic period is not so much a teaching about the world cosmology as it is an ethic, a way of living. If everything is ordered, if everything happens for a purpose, there is no reason for one to be disturbed about anything that one cannot control. One simply needs to embody imperturbability. The emotions are to be controlled or even denied. There's no purpose in being sad about your life setting. It is what it is. You do what you have to do. If you're a slave, you're a slave. If you're in the position of a servant, you're in the position of a servant. There's nothing you can do about that. Life has given you that perspective, that reality. And so the best thing you can do is realize that if that life has to be, that's the way it is. And you get on with your life. And their ideal then is to be not just by anything, control your emotions and to move forward with life, to be resigned to the reality that yes, much can happen in this world, but there's no reason for me to get emotionally all upset about it. Good illustration of this, if you ever have seen the movie Gladiator, at the very beginning, the great emperor Marcus Aurelius is portrayed in that film, the dying emperor. But really, Gladiator is that entire movie. If you ever get to see it, it's kind of a tale about Stoicism. The great general falls prey to bandits and ends up a slave and a gladiator, And through all things, he just basically remains even-keeled. He knows who he is. Life can throw all kinds of things at you, but as long as you realize that there's logical reason, that there's an order for the world, there's no reason to allow your emotions to control you. Another form of philosophy and thinking in this period is Epicureanism. Now, Epicurus' thoughts, and Epicurus was a thinker also from the Greek classical period, who had tremendous influence upon the Hellenistic period. Their cosmology, their view of the universe, was that everything was random. So whereas the Stoics believed everything was well ordered, the Epicureans believed that everything was random. You had these little atoms that sort of shifted and combined randomly to make different things happen in the world, and there's no way to control it. There's no one in charge, no way to control it, nothing to do. And if that's the reality, that everything is random in life, then the best thing you can do is really to seek the good in life by seeking what is pleasurable, what is good. So the goal of life was, not to be worried about why things are happening, or again, it's a similar goal even to the Platonists. It's not to worry, but to just seek the greatest pleasure and to avoid pain as much as possible. Now, this doesn't mean to live in excess, and this is one of the things that I think is misunderstood by Epicurus. About Epicurus, people think that he taught, just go wild and party. That's not Epicureanism. It's not this idea, let's eat and drink and go crazy. But it's more of balancing the pleasure with the pain. And Epicurus himself, he was a vegetarian. He didn't eat any meat. He abstained from drinking wine. Why? Because such things could cause one pain in the long run. And you needed to balance the pleasure and the pain. So he would eat simple meals. He would drink just water. He would tell his disciples not to eat too much, only to eat as much as they need, because excess will bring pain. And his ideal was the simple life, living a simple life with one's friends. They had this ideal of the garden, that you would sit with your friends in the back, in the garden of the household in the evenings, that you would enjoy life, have philosophical discussions with them, not get too emotionally upset about that, not striving after greatness. If you're striving to be something more than is possible, then you're only going to bring more pain in your life. So not to be too ambitious, but to have a simple, regular life that gives you peace, right? So that's Epicurus. Another philosophy that became very influential upon a branch of early Christianity was Gnosticism. Gnosis in Greek means secret. And so Gnosticism is involved with the secret teachings, the secret knowledges. They believe that somehow there is, in reality, hidden secret teaching, and that the reality itself is basically negative. And this goes back to the Gnostic myth of the world's founding. They believe that the world was created by a demigod, not the chief god is all good, but this chief god had an offspring, a demigod, who then creates the world, and it's this world that this demigod creates is evil. It's basically a bowel movement of this demigod. It's poop. And so they look around at the physical world and they see it and they view it as nothing but suffering, nothing but pain, nothing but random chance and distraction. But that the great God had, when he saw that this demigod, this evil demigod, had made this awful physical world, put sparks within that world, divine sparks, spread them out, sort of like seeds spread into that dung of the world. And the goal of the Gnostics is to help you recover the divine spark within you. And you see how dualism, how Platonic dualism has an influence upon Gnosticism, because they do believe that you've got the physical world, you've got the this divine world, the spiritual world, but this divine spark within, it's kind of dualism in extreme, and much more, very influenced by sort of the dualism of the Eastern religions that one might find in Iran. But Gnosticism becomes embedded in all kinds of religions. There's Jewish Gnostics, there, in fact, are Christian Gnostics. And what they do is they'll take the teachings and the experience, the narrative of these religions, they'll hijack it for their own purposes. And so a Gnostic teacher might proclaim that Jesus was the one who revealed the truth, but it's a secret truth. If you read the Gospel of Thomas, it even starts out, these are the secrets that Jesus taught his disciples, right? It's not a truth that's available to everybody, but only ones who come into contact with the Gnostic teachers themselves. And this is the problem. This is the problem with that Proto-Orthodox had with the Gnostics. First off, this idea that Gnosticism views the world as just negative. But the Bible teaches us that God created the world and God said it was good. So that's one problem. The other problem is that Christianity came to embody community seeking truth, that Christ reveals truth to the church. And I think that's important. It's not a secret. These Gnostics would, of course, teach you that you had to uphold certain things, you had to fast, you had to do all these different kinds of things in order to know the truth. You had to pay the Gnostic teacher. It becomes a system of manipulation and control. And I think the early Proto-Orthodox Christians had problems with this because they believed that the good news was freely available. The gospel was freely available to anyone. Christ died for all, not just for those who understand him or understand the secrets of him. So Gnosticism becomes incorporated in certain streams of Christianity in the 2nd century, but eventually becomes rejected by the early Church fathers. That's important to keep in mind. Your textbook will sort of push Gnosticism as one of the groups within early Christianity, and perhaps you could say that, but I think there are so many elements that are foreign to Judaism and foreign to Christian teaching, Jesus' teaching, that the early church was wise to avoid portions of it. So when you talk about Gnosticism, you can look in the world today and see people who kind of share this Gnostic approach to life, some certain New Age sects, this idea that all you have to do is free your soul and the world is basically bad, and some people know secrets more than others. A lot of people are attracted to this kind of faith. Others, really, I think, if you look in our churches, people live simple lives of pleasure, just like Epicurus. It's not necessarily that we need to believe one thing or another. We just to have a simple life. We live simply. I just want to have my family around me. I don't want to take on too much. I just want to do what I need to do. I don't want to be stressed by all these different things. I just want to have a simple life with my family. Not party, not go crazy, but enjoy simple pleasures, right? And I think Stoicism is attractive to a certain element of people too, especially those who probably have experienced something very negative in life. This idea that I can preserve myself, I can preserve my sanity by believing that all things have a purpose and work for good. And you see elements of Stoicism, I think, in early Christianity as well. So I hope you've learned a little something from this little introduction to Greco-Roman philosophy, and that it'll be valuable as you think through the kinds of influence and experiences that and writings of the New Testament, how they may incorporate or be reacting against one or another of these Greco-Roman philosophies.